Hey, what's going on, y'all? Copyright and Culture. Boy Loso 2.0, the copy got himself here today with, let him introduce himself, man.
So new to this, Kharee. Follow me on the gram, Kharee Mac, KHAREE MAC. Same thing for TikTok, all that.
Yeah. So today we're going to be covering a few different topics here today. We have about 4 different topics we're going to talk about. We're going to do this probably like weekly and stuff so you guys can get a little different taste of different people getting their different mindset, just not me all the time, you know what I mean? Although you guys love me, all right? So, first, Kharee, I mean, you're pretty good at talk about stuff. So today we're going to talk about abortion. So, what do you think about that, what just got passed and stuff like that?
The current situation, so it's a multi-pronged question, I feel like, right? There's the question of what do you think about abortion in general, and then there's the what do you think about the ruling that just happened. And as far as the ruling that just happened, I guess I want to start with, in like our lifetime, we're both, I'm 23, you're 24.
Yeah.
So in our lifetime, abortion has never been our decision, right?
Yeah.
Whether the choice to carry or abort a child or to bring a child into the world has never been our choice. I've kind of come to accept that, and it has always been it's always been a woman's choice, and I've come to accept that, and I don't really have a problem with it, but now it's nobody's choice. It's the state's choice. It's the government's choice, and it don't really sit right with me. It's something larger at hand, I feel like. And if you really look at it, you see the forest through the trees, you see the bigger picture. It's something bigger at hand, but I do want to hear your thoughts on it.
I mean, honestly, I feel like we can't tell a woman what to do with her body. At the end of the day, I mean, I know, so we're going to talk about that a little bit because I know there's some different things about that, but I know we can't tell a woman what to do with their body. So it's like, for us to actually make a law specifically stating that women cannot do this in certain states, it's like, that's crazy to me. I mean, honestly, it's probably going to increase the abortions because, you tell somebody not to do something, they're going to do it more.
Go ahead.
No, but I was going to say, because I want to talk about this, because remember when I was saying like how we were talking about how like it's the woman's choice. I want you to kind of expand on that then, like
it's the woman's choice.
Yeah, for like the abortion, it's always just the woman's choice though.
Oh, it is. At the end of the day, it affects her body the most. So up to this point, well, not up to this point, but since that case has happened, the Roe v. Wade case, it's been 100% her choice.
Yeah.
And so much to the point that she doesn't have to consult anybody but her doctor in order for it to happen.
Facts.
And you can argue whether or not that's morally or ethically right, but legally, I kind of do agree with it, because I mean there are the instances where someone feels uncomfortable with having to tell their significant other or the person we're having a baby with for fear of retaliation or whatever.
Yeah, facts.
So I'm trying to remember I don't know what point you want me to get to. I feel like you want me to say something.
No, because that's what I was kind of getting to though. Like, I mean, y'all can comment below too what y'all think about this. Like, it's just crazy to me. I mean, it's kind of difficult because, like, what are those situations like? If the man wants to keep the baby, but then the woman doesn't want to.
Oh, it's I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, it's always been her choice.
Yeah.
And, like, I had to kind of accept that, like, no matter what, whether or not I want to keep the baby and you don't, it's your choice. If you want to keep the baby and I don't, that's still your choice. And it's kind of just one of those things, I guess, in life where, I mean, us as men, we can't really make that decision for them. And I mean, I've come to terms with that a long time ago. I'm not a fan of this decision.
Yeah.
And like I say,
fact.
How informed are you on this? Like this case?
Mean, honestly, I'm not really that informed on it because it's like I was just like, what? When I seen it, I didn't even know what was going on until I look at it and they're like, yeah, abortions are illegal in certain states. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm like, what the? It's just crazy that it's so random. Like, I mean,
it's a lot going on, and that's kind of what they got. Like they're deciding. It's so prior, it was a federal. It was protected under the Constitution. Right? The case, based off of my understanding of it, the case Roe v. Wade ended in them saying that under the 14th Amendment that this falls under the right to privacy.
Yeah.
And now they originally how it was stated or how it was worded was that it's just going to become a state issue, right? And you might not see no problem in that, but then today or whatever day it was that I read, I'm like, okay, you might not have a problem with that initially, but then when you see once this thing came back up, and you start to see 13, however many states it was, had trigger laws in place as soon as if the Supreme Court passed it, that immediately or within like the certain conditions that it was going to happen. And you're like, okay, I see what's going on here. So I feel like whether or not you agree or disagree with abortion, I feel like you should be able to like see like, okay, it's something that's going on here.
Something deeper than
So
No, it's definitely something deeper than the surface. That is just like I said, it was just crazy to me to wake up in the morning and I'm just like, what's going on? There's all these abortion laws. I know everybody has their different takes on it. And that kind of goes back into kind of what we were talking about the other day. Do we feel like Christianity plays a big part in our legal system?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what you think about that.
I think it does. I think it does probably too much. And I'm wondering, I mean, if you listen, it depends on who you listen to. Like I've listened to both sides, you know, the left and the right. And the right, some of the right is, you know, they come from whether or not it's Christianity, like as in like Christian or Catholic, or they come from that kind of point of view. And it can be kind of ingrained in some of their talking points. And I'm gonna let you speak.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, honestly, personally myself, I mean, I haven't read the whole Bible, I don't know everything, but I didn't see anything on there that was saying like it's wrong to, you know, get it. But then I guess it kind of falls into, I guess they're trying to put it into some type of like murder, you know what I mean? So it's just like, it's just crazy to me because it's like, to me, it's not really like a person quite yet.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to ask. Okay, so do you have an actual opinion on abortion yet, or do you just kind of like it's you don't have to deal with it personally?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, so it's like I've never dealt with it personally, and then also too at the same time, it's like I just feel like I can't speak on it. Like I don't know. First of all, I ain't trying to get canceled. No. Secondly,
you can speak on it. You can speak on it. So like if you one of the talking points that happens is some people are okay with abortion up to a certain point, right? So you might be okay with abortion. Nasty. So, you might be okay with abortion up to, like a lot of people are okay with abortion up to a certain point, maybe when the life has a heartbeat or whatever. So there's always the argument of what is a life and when is it a life, right? Is it a life at the point of conception or is it a life, you know, at some point when there's heartbeat and all that type of stuff? And people have their different talking points. Some people can agree to, you know, say, okay, you know, at the point of conception, it's still fine until it's a heartbeat. Some people, you know, all the way up to it's almost ready, like time she's ready to pop, like they feel that that's okay.
Well, isn't it like, I mean, I'm not really that well like in the science of abortion, but ain't it at a certain point it's actually dangerous to get it though for the mom. So then that's when they have to have the baby.
I think it can be, yeah. I'm not 100%.
And then when they have the baby, it's just like I feel like abortion, because it's like now they're kind of like setting women to be kind of like in danger too. Sometimes, you know, having a baby is actually dangerous for women. Actually, a lot of black women too as well. Like it's actually dangerous for them to have babies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like now, I mean, maybe they try and do some type of population control. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's another one of the common theories that I don't know if we'll get into that, but that's another common theory. Not population control, but not in a way where, you know, they're trying to kill black people, but it's for white people's numbers to increase is one of the popular.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like it's crazy though, because I know that like it's really dangerous for like black women because a lot of times they have babies, they die.
The healthcare system is failing them. So
Yeah.
From everything I'm hearing, and this doesn't seem like this is just like a propaganda. Like everything I'm hearing, I have friends that are nurses. From everything I'm hearing, like it's a real thing. So
damn, that's just crazy.
I'm pretty sure it's numbers that would support that, but it's a dangerous decision, and I'm glad I don't have to make it, I guess. But it's so messed up because even if you get an abortion, it seems like it's like such a mentally taxing thing, because I know it's a mentally taxing thing from the male perspective, even if you're not, because I've known people who've lost babies, whether or not it's to abortion or, you know, just through miscarriage or whatever. And even on the man, especially if it's somebody who wanted one, it's like really rough. So I figure that even if the woman agrees that it's the right thing to do in her mind, it's still probably taxing on her mind. So
emotionally, yeah. Like I said, probably know people that dealt with that type of thing before as well. So it's like, yeah, I feel like for the woman, it really is. Regardless of what she wants to think it is, women, I say this with a grain of salt, women are emotional creatures though too as well. And that's, like I said, within the Bible, women equal emotion. But everybody's emotional creatures, but women just have a little bit more because of, you know, that science, whatever though. But it's just like, so they're going to get affected by it somehow, some way, you know. So yeah, no, I definitely don't agree with that. We both are saying we don't agree with it, y'all.
I don't agree it should be in law. No.
Yeah.
I don't know if it should have been in law to begin with, but it was. But there's a reason why I guess it was in law, because they tried to, whatever the case was, she was fighting for her right to have it.
And I feel like they're not going to stop abortion. Like I said, I've seen they were saying before even abortion became like legal, people were doing it illegally in bathroom stalls and stuff. So it's still like,
I mean, you see some of the memes I heard, seeing girls post
Yeah.
I don't know how much we can say on here, but some of them been out of
Yeah.
pocket.
I seen abortions by Mia on.
Oh no! I seen one. The girl said somebody. It wasn't me, and they were like, "Shit, I'm still gonna fall down them stairs." So.
Oh, that's true.
And then one of the girlfriends said, "Girl, I'll punch you in your stomach if you need me to."
Yo, you know what? Yo, now this is what I wanted to talk about too. So it's funny. It just goes to a random topic. It's off that, like, just based off what you said though. Like, yo, we as like a black community, we gotta start taking stuff more serious, yo. Like, yo, like I'm telling you, like
I feel like that's a whole different topic because I do want to get into that. But that's a whole different topic.
Yo,
I do want to get into that.
We really do gotta start taking stuff serious. Like I feel like not even just like. I mean, it's like we joke about stuff, yeah, because we joke to like lighten the load of like
it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, it is, but it's just like.
But at some point, you got to get serious.
Yo, for real.
Some people don't know how to get serious, but I don't mind it. If it's funny enough, I'm not gonna lie. I'm in a comedy, so like if it's funny enough, I almost.
No, I still like dark humor.
And
but it's just like yeah, I like that, but it's just at the same time, it's like I see that also too with like mental health too. I think I talked about in one of my episodes. Like we joke about stuff that like for example, like I feel like growing up as a young boy was like, oh, Lil, you fat as heck, like you're a fat young boy, and then we do it to our nieces and nephews. And stuff.
I'm positive. No, we definitely do that. I know we probably both face this specifically. Like if you want to go into like relationship type of stuff where you might make a passive aggressive comment, where you in your mind you're not saying it to make her mad. But like it's like you might have wanted to address something that's not getting addressed. So like you make the comment, you laugh it off because that's the only way you can kind of get it, like your emotions out.
Yeah, facts. It's just crazy.
It's not right, but that's kind of like just how we joke about everything. Like I'm really self-deprecating, so I joke about everything.
For real, and it's funny because it just reminds me of what J. Cole saying, all jokes contain truth.
Oh no, it could definitely do. But I think this will probably segue us to our the next topic of control because we spoke about like abortion and how. It's been out of our control this whole time. Like I said, whether or not the kid wants to come into the world, it's been out of our control past the point of conception, and now it's about to be out of their control too in some states. So I know we did this conversation sprung off a whole completely different conversation about prenup.
Yeah,
I mean we could get into that too if we want to, but like I think this conversation was like even like more important or even better. So I want you to kind of go into your beliefs about what's in your control and what's out of your control.
Everything is in our control. Everything is in our control, and I'm a 100% believer in that everything is in our control, based off of like everything is off our control, and then, like I said, it depends on the person what they can control. So like, I before I talked about like we were all in different realities, but I feel like we're not. I will take that back now. Speaking of taking all that stuff, shout out to Tank. We're all in the same reality, but we move at different frequencies. So I can control something that's going on in my life, but then based off of your beliefs, you can control something that's happening in your life, but you may feel like you don't have control because you're saying you don't have control. So it's all about me. I feel like it's about the tongue. It's the most powerful weapon on your body. It allows you to speak things into existence or speak things not into existence. That's why I feel like you have control of everything in your life. Remember that, guys.
Well, like the way we just explained it now is a little bit different than like what we talked. Well, that's how you explained it when we just was the last time we spoke about it. Like the first time. So what you just said, kind of almost sounds like what I'm saying, but it doesn't, right? So we had this conversation, right? Because it sprung off the prenup and relationship conversation, and what I was saying was you can control the only thing in this world that I feel like you can control is yourself, right? You can try to control your surroundings, but that's part of that's controlling yourself by what you allow in your life. But you can only control yourself. Anything past that, I feel is out of your control, right? And then I think that's where we kind of that conversation led us to that. But then I feel like when we were having this conversation, I'm trying to say I feel like, but when we were having this conversation, I was saying that, for instance, I can only control me, right? So if I go out and I'm a safe driver, I'm driving defensively. I think I'm 100% sure that as long as the conditions are good, that if my car doesn't do anything weird, I'm never going to get into an accident, right? But I'm not driving because I think I'm getting into an accident. I'm driving safely because I don't trust the people around me, right? So I can do everything right, but if somebody wants to run a red light or somebody wants to just keep driving, because this happened to you. I mean, you're coming out of standstill and just keep driving and rear end you, boss. There's nothing you could do about that, right? And then at that moment, you were like, nah, that's still in your control.
It is, because, let me tell you something. Because first of all, you chose to go down that road. Regardless of, like I said, you controlled that because it's your fault. Because you decided to go down that road. And then even with that accident with myself, too, as well. And I don't care if my sister watching this or not. She can't drive. So she hit the brakes late, so they smashed into us from the back. So it's our fault. Well, it was my fault for getting in the car, but her knowing she drives crazy. It was her fault for braking late. Then it's the guy's fault for smashing into us. So the accident was all her fault.
See, I can poke holes at this, right? Because it's like if you continue that kind of logic, I don't even want to do that to you, Bart. So
Go ahead, do it.
because then if somebody were to want to poke a hole in yours, like kind of make you look bad, the first thing they would say is, okay, what about somebody who gets raped?
So,
and it's like, but you got, it's like
you control it to a point. I have to stick with my thing only because of the reason I'm saying this is because regardless of the situation, you chose to be in that spot at that time. So it's kind of like, not saying you are like, I'm not saying like girls, I'm not saying you the cause of it, girls wear what they want to wear, you know what I mean? I'm saying though, you were at that spot at that time, so you did have some control over it. And then you control how it affects you, right? So like, you get raped, and like, you can go, there's girls that get mental health problems, stuff like that. They don't see nothing good out of it. But then there's people that get, I was just reading this in my book, and it's in my bag somewhere, but literally in The Giant Within, he was talking about this. So the lady, and it was, he was talking about control. It's funny, I was just reading this. So he literally, he was talking about how a girl, or lady, her husband, it was two guys, right? They literally got out of jail, and they decided they wanted to go back in jail. So her husband was at the gas station, just randomly, and they said the next person that comes to the gas station, we're going to beat him to death. And it was so happens her husband, on a regular day, they beat him to death and he died. And then it was just like, dang. Like, she could have played the victim, but instead she decided to take control and say, oh, that was his fault for being there. So now she's saying, instead of just allowing that stuff to bring her down and be like, oh, you know what, like, people are crazy in this world, don't trust people. Instead, she was getting all the support from the community. She took something good out of it and was just like, you know what? She showed her kids that, like, there are good people in this world, but there are some bad people, but there's good people in this world, and people are supported. So she controlled what happened after that, even though she controlled, I mean, that was like separate from her, but I'm saying her husband was there at the wrong place, wrong time. He did control that for being there. She controlled how it happened afterwards. So you do have control of it.
So this is where we disagreed the other day, right?
Yeah.
I said, I agree with the point of, right, whoever, like in that case, right, he's responsible. He made the decision to be where he was at that time, right?
Yeah.
At that point, whatever those people did, that was completely their decision, right? That was, they had their own free will. They made that decision to do that. He cannot control whether or not they wanted to be peaceful that day or they did not. So like, to me, the point of control stops at yourself, right? There's only but so much you can do. You cannot control what that other person does. If somebody wants to walk in here right now and shoot up his crib, it's like, we can't really do much about that other than try to defend ourselves, right? Yeah. But I mean, we did what we thought was safe, which is being at home, but I mean, at that point, that's out of the control, right? And then there are some things, right, with like you can, to an extent, you can kind of control like what happens afterwards, but there are some things where kind of like it's hard to control, right? Where we talk about,
impossible.
Well, almost, it might be, I'm not sure how. I mean, you can take like, I guess, drugs for it, where you start to talk about like hormones and you talk about like different neurotransmitters and stuff like that, to where, a traumatic experience like that happens to you, and now, the wrong, I don't know the exact word, but I guess it's hormones or whatever. More of those are firing in your body than what they would have been prior to that. So now maybe you're more depressed and whatever. And those, short of medicine, it's kind of, I don't really know how much you can control that. But
I mean, well, so two things. First of all, with the saying like it was out of his control for being there at that time, but then their control for doing it, he still was in that situation, so he controlled that situation to an extent, so he still controlled it.
I think before you do
that, listen, it reminds me of when you were saying like, so if I tell a story, right, and I tell a story, even though I'm telling my story, but someone else was in it too, they're like, they may feel like some type of ways. They're like, yo, like that was also my story to tell because they were in that situation regardless. So it's the same thing. Like, I controlled.
I almost wish that we kind of started with like we talked about, because it would tie in better if we had started with relationship with this too. Right? So here's where, when we talked the other day, I feel like, damn, I keep saying that. When we talked the other day, I think that you confuse control with influence, right? I think you may have influence over any given situation that you're in, right? You may have influence. Now, if that person wants to completely disregard anything that you said, I guess you didn't have influence, but even then, I think you probably still did, because you have to think about it. But you don't have control over that, right? You can only control what you can do. If I want to jump right now, I can jump. I can try to get you to jump, but I can only influence you on whether or not you want to, right? So to me, I think there's a difference, right? There's a separation between control and influence. And I do think that people have some sort of influence over a lot of the predicaments that they're in, but they don't have control over them.
No, so they kind of still one and the same too as well, though. Because so you can have influence in, like, influencing can be control too as well, because it reminds me of like selling though, right? Like you could come in here for the death of you and say, yo, I am not You know how we're at AT&T. Customers come in there, start off, hey, this is what I'm getting. And then they walk out with everything in the store. They're like, whoa, what the heck just happened? Because I took control, because I influenced them to do that.
That's influence, right? The choice was still theirs at the end of the day to make, because they could you could give the best pitch, but if they are stuck on their ways and they don't want to get it, they're not going to get it. You know what I mean? So that's where I say there's a difference between influence and control.
I mean, yeah, but like I'm saying, though, I'm talking about as far as, so listen. So first of all, when I was saying control everything in your life, I don't think I was talking about like
the literally
situations. I don't know how to explain
now
it.
we're
Like,
talking about situations, but maybe
I'm talking about situations. So like, I think is what you're saying is right. Kind of like situations that have to do with yourself. But I'm saying, I think there's a difference between control and fault. So I'm saying it was your fault for being there. So you did have some type of, you were in that situation. So that's what I was saying. I was not saying like you control that situation, but I was like, I mean, I guess the kind of way you do though, but it's just like, it's your fault for being there at that time, regardless of what happens. So it's like, it is your fault, but being control, when I'm saying control, I mean like you controlling, like when I'm talking about like I said, something about that woman, how she controlled how her emotions happened after the death of her husband. She could have went one way, but she decided to do the other way, which goes into choice and all that stuff too as well. But that's what I mean though. I don't really mean like, because like I said, there's some times where it doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe the control wasn't the word I was using, but it's your fault though. That's what I mean.
Like I said, I mean, this is probably where we agree to disagree. I guess my point of view is that you control yourself in that situation, right? So you control the fact that you were there. You can assign fault to that person for being there, whether or not they didn't know that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you can assign them fault for them doing that to them, because they did nothing. I mean, even in that situation, you might not even influence that decision other than walking in. But at the end of the day, that was still that person's choice, right? And the reason I think we were talking about this was because we were talking about like the relationships and stuff like that, and about how you can't control everything. I think where Hobby got there, I think you were more so talking about, because I know where it stems from. It stems from like an entrepreneurial mindset where you're talking. I hope that's the way you say it. Yeah. Entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, where you feel that you can control the outcomes in your life. Generally speaking, like if you have a goal and that's what the goal that you want, and you put your all into it, that you can control that outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where we disagree still too, because I think to an extent, yes, but there are some decisions like this where I think you can have influence, right? There's some decisions that are out of your hands, right? So now you can like we've had this happen where we went and we played on teams, and we still put the most of the fault on us. Like I put most of the fault in my career myself, right? But you can go and you could do everything in your power that you feel that you did to make a team or to get playing time or whatever. But at the end of the day, the same way you had the free will to do that work and to do all this, that person, whoever is the person that's the gatekeeper at that point, had the decision to either say yes or say no.
I mean, it still falls on your fault because you felt like you did enough, but maybe it really wasn't enough.
In that case, yeah, I mean, I like when we talk about sports, I think that's a topic. I don't know, do we put that in?
Yeah, we talk about numbers, but we can keep going with
that. But no, that's definitely a topic where I'm even, like I said, in my career, I've had things happen to me that I feel like I didn't like, but I'd still put the ultimate fault on myself in those cases. But I think that's how we arrived there. And when we're speaking about things like that, I do think that that's kind of the mindset. It's a mindset you want to feel that you have more control of your outcomes than not in that, because if you don't, then it's kind of like a defeated mindset, because if you're going into it like it doesn't really matter, it can kind of sometimes be defeating. But then, I mean, on the other hand, if you play the numbers game, sometimes you might feel, okay, well, the odds are in my favor in this, and let me do something that's more solid, and let me go with that, because that might be the wiser decision.
But I mean, it goes back to how much you really believe that. So like you can say that, oh, I control this thing and I'm doing that. You can say it as all you want, but if you don't believe it, it's not gonna happen. Like for example, I mean, I swear we got the yearbook somewhere around here. Courtney's yearbook for senior year. I literally said, "I'll see you again." What happened 4 years later? You know what I mean? Like I'm saying, I control my situation. I control my situation. I knew what it was. I spoke it into existence, and I believed it. And that's why it happened. You know what I mean? Everything I do, I speak into existence, and it happens because it depends how much you can convince yourself. If you can't convince yourself, because it depends on your references, right? That's what really. It's funny. I'm just reading that too, man. Tony Robbins is a GOAT, yo. Listen.
It's funny. One of the topics I gave, they said that's who originally gave that quote. We could talk about that.
Oh yeah.
I know that was his quote. I thought it was somebody
Tony
else.
Robbins is the GOAT. He talks about how much you believe something is based off of references. How many references you can make to yourself. So like if I say I'm a good shooter, right, and I don't have any references to back that up to myself, I'm not really gonna believe it. but I have to say, oh, I'm a good shooter because I made 10 threes yesterday. And it's like, oh, you are a good shooter. And then you have to keep telling yourself this every single day. That's why I do my affirmations.
Let me ask you this, right? Because this is actually a question that I think I know the answer to this, but I want to ask you. Do you think that anybody who's great at anything is delusional?
Yeah, you are.
You have to be, right? Because when you really break things down, like I can see why, growing up, people looked at me crazy when I'm like, yo, I want to make the league. And I was littlest, like I was small.
Yeah.
And even if I wasn't small, I'm like, yo, when you do the numbers, you're like, oh snap, it's really like a 1 in a billion thing. Like you really have to be delusional, like you have to be delusional, right? If you're great at anything, you must have to be delusional. Like if you're on a court, you have to have confidence in yourself, right? And a lot of times you want to believe that you're going to step on that court thinking that you're the best player on that court.
You have to believe it though.
And you might have absolutely no reason to believe that. Like when you really if you have to take an objective look, you may have never scored 10 points in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, you still have to believe in yourself enough to say, go out there every time. I'm like, yo, if I want to do what I want to do, nobody can stop that. I think everybody who's great to some extent is somewhat delusional. Even if it worked out for them, I still think that there's some sort of like crazy self-belief that borders on the line of delusion. If it's not delusion, it borders that. It's really close.
Then we can't use. It's like
I don't want to use delusion, but
but you know what I mean.
Like
you have to
from the outside looking in, it's like what, bro?
Because that's their reality. Well, that's their frequency, what their mind moves at, the frequency. So it's like a lot of times when people don't believe in what you do and their frequency is lower than yours, they'll try to push their stuff on you. Yeah. So oh yeah, you making a lead? What? No, because they think in themselves that they can't do that. That's what people do on the outside. Yeah. Especially with insecurity, it's the same thing. Like people are insecure because they feel like they're lacking in something. So then they're like, all right, I don't want that person to do this or do that type of thing. So yeah, it really goes to you really do. I mean, delusion is not the word I was using, but yeah, you have to really convince yourself. You really have to.
Sometimes they can be delusional. Some people can be delusional, but not even in a bad way. I think sometimes that's what makes them so great, right? Yeah. I think there's the great people who take calculated risk and play the numbers in the way where they play probability, and then there's also the great ones who say F the numbers and I don't even know if he's supposed to be cussing, but I say F the numbers, right? And they just it doesn't matter, and that goes into the topic of the fourth topic where we can get into that too. Yeah. That goes where it's like, yo, you F the numbers. I want to do this. I don't care how unlikely or improbable it is. It seems I want to do this, and I believe I can do this, and I believe that I can be the best at that if that's what my goal is. Exactly. And I'm going to do it. And some people get there, some people don't. But the thought of it from the outside looking in, especially if that's not your mindset, it's almost like, yo, you really have to be somewhat, maybe not delusional, but you have to be somewhat crazy. I think all the great people you have to be somewhat crazy.
No, so I think you're right. When people doing the numbers and they, do probability stuff, they become great. Mm-hmm. But the ones who say F the numbers become extraordinary. That's just really, it really is. Look, so that's deep. So they become extraordinary because they really are just forget the numbers. When they have a will to do something so much, they keep working to that failure. They take, they don't take no for an answer. They don't take rejection for an answer. And I mean that only with being successful. Yeah. So,
Step on that right now. Step on that right now. Let me just do that. Step on that right now.
Hold on, let me make sure this joint's still charging. All right, we're
you got to step on that right now.
Yeah. If that take no for an answer when it comes to being successful, those ones are the ones that become extraordinary because they won't let nothing stop them from being, great.
I do want to say something. I do want to get into it, a topic that's not written down. Since we're talking about probability and possibility and all that, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that people have kind of demonized almost being improbable to the point where it's not cool, it's uncool to be probable and to be a normal person?
Yeah, people did that because and it's funny, it's really social media's fault. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's 100% social media's fault, and then people want to be more than what they. It's I don't know how to explain it though. So we know that the 1% of people are successful, right? Mm. But social media will make you think that that number is crazy right now.
Well, I won't even say. Well, it depends on how you define success, right?
My fault. Millionaires. 1% of people are millionaires.
Okay, there we go.
and 1% of people are millionaires, but then it's just now being a normal person or average person is corny. Yeah, you do. The thing is though, we do need people like that in life though. You know what I mean? It's not meant for everybody to be extraordinary. It's really not.
Nothing wrong with that. It's something wrong with if you're able-bodied, you're consistently being broke and not trying to do anything to better your life, or if you have a family, you're not trying to do anything to help take care of your family, right? Mm. That's what's corny to me, right? Now we understand everybody gets down on their luck. You mean this? You go through things. You might not be physically able to. That's completely different, right? And it's different to be in between. You're in a bad place. Try to pick yourself up out of it. But it's so much to the point now where people you working a normal job has become ill. You work a normal job. Where there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? Entrepreneurship or being a millionaire or doing all that, maybe not for everybody. Some people like the stability of having a check that you know is going to come in every week for that same price, right?
And we need that,
right? Like between me and you, right? I have a salary job. You have a job that you have a base salary and commission, right? Yeah. And that's not for everybody, right? Even me, I mean, I guess I have a conflict of where like I have a conflict between like business and like personal, to where like I guess sometimes I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know if I want to do that. Right? If I'm going to sell stuff, I guess I want to sell stuff that I fully 100% believe in, and I just I guess I have bad experiences with certain like stuff like that. So not to say that's what you do, but for instance, for me, I might not necessarily in this moment right now pick that opportunity, right, where he has more earning, but right now, if all things are equal, I don't leave my job. He has more earning potential than I do, right? If everything goes great for him, he can make way more than what I make right now, right? But me, I have the consistency and the stability of the job that I have right now.
Yeah. You know you're gonna get that check.
And this isn't necessarily the end goal that I have. I become more okay with, understanding that, what, I gave this a bad rep growing up. Like growing up, I never wanted to work a regular job. I still don't, right? That's right. JP, don't. I'm there with y'all. Right? But like ultimately, right, at some point, I do want to graduate to a point where I don't, because that's always been my thing, and I still strongly feel that way. But I guess growing up, I didn't look down on it, but I gave it maybe a worse rap than what it was, and I think that's a lot of people. This is before social media. That's like this is just growing up. I just always was like, yo, I'm going to do something that I love doing, and I'm going to be a millionaire off of it, like a multi-millionaire off of it.
It's still so. The thing is, I was talking about this before in one of my episodes too. Social media is rushing us too, because like we'll see all these people who are like, "Oh, I'm a self-made millionaire," but really, a lot of times people are lying. First of all, they are, and secondly, it's like that we don't see what happens behind closed doors. Like most entrepreneurs, I said this, takes 7 to 10 years to be like makes multiple six figures. To have a successful business, 7 to 10 years, and it's because the fact that like you think about it, we grew up 18 to 20 years learning one way. The industrial age, it was get a job or stuff like that, or we may be learning like, oh, you need to be,
they were training us to be workers.
Yeah, conditioners, education. We talked about
literally from what I read, that like the education system as it was built was to train people to be working in factories.
Yeah. So we had 18, 20 years of that, and even now with the rise of entrepreneurship, it's like, oh, we had 18, 20 years of feeling like that, what's it called? Instant gratification. Like, yo, we should be making millions now. Like, we should be making millions now. And when we don't feel like we're making it now, we get down on ourselves. And everybody does it. I even feel myself doing it sometimes. But it's just like, you got to remember, like, Eric Thomas, he was homeless, eating out trash cans on YouTube, making 8 to 10 years making free YouTube videos. And he blew up. Tony Robbins was a janitor for years before he blew up and spent like hundreds of thousands of dollars on courses that he saved up his money, put it on courses, and started helping people immediately. It's like that stuff takes time. Like, you know what I mean?
That's the thing.
And you have to be consistent.
People rush it, right? Where if you look at the statistics, right? I know we talk about probability and all that and believing in yourself, and this is absolutely like you should. But like the numbers, as far as like when people become millionaires, it's not normal to become a millionaire early, before 20 or in your 20s, right? There's a handful of people that do that, the professional athletes in certain fields, and then if you sell a good product or whatever, you can get that. But most people become millionaires in their 30s and 40s. Like people become like later in their life. I don't know if it's 30s or 40s, but I think it's 40s.
I remember I seen that. Yep, a lot of them, it took them till they were like 40 years old to become a millionaire. But it's just like they putting in that work, and that's what's gonna make it different, right? I feel like everybody tries to dabble into entrepreneurship a little bit, like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. But then it's the ones that stay consistent and they do 10 years straight, like. Come on now. We know most people are not doing 10 years straight of nothing. Like, but to be 10 years straight, and don't even get me started on some of your relationships, but to go 10 years straight and be consistent with that.
Stop tweeting. I'm trying to hurry up. They call me out guard a little bit. I don't know what you're talking about.
But y'all can't even go 10 years straight in your relationship, and y'all trying to go 10 years straight in entrepreneurship. Y'all not going to do it, because y'all, if y'all don't get things the way y'all want things to happen, y'all ended up just like, all right, getting away with it, trying to move on to the next. And you ain't even working at nothing. Like I said, how you do anything is how you do everything. So you do that. Yeah, go ahead.
So a point I want to make that to add to that, right, is that it's something even I struggle with, right? That people so if you want to do like this entrepreneur, especially if you haven't grown or you haven't had like a talent from like a young age, if you're trying to start something, right, you have to be okay with being bad at that something, right? So especially if like what you want to do is a skill, right? Let's say you want to start playing an instrument for a living or whatever, you've never played that instrument before. You're going to have to be okay with that the beginning stages of you being trash. Like you're going to be trash.
You are.
You have to be okay with that, right?
Yeah. Can you plug charger?
Still going?
Yeah, it is. It is. I just want to plug the charger in a little bit. No, it's right here. Under the phone. Yeah, the wires. A little test. Yeah. Do your thing, man. Oh, snap. Can I even do that?
I don't know, man. It's showing in the way. Can you see it better?
Yeah, go ahead. You can keep talking now. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, man.
What I was saying was that you're going to have to go through that uncomfortable stage of being trash at something, or even if you're not trash, maybe not being as good as the top guys, right? Or the top girls, top any, whatever you identify as, right? You might not be that top tier, but you put that work in consistently, you'll be better at the very least. You might not reach the pinnacle, but you'll be a lot better.
No, 100%. You definitely will be a lot better, and that's funny because that a little bit kind of goes into the last topic, because it's like, do what you love or love what you do. Also, too, does that, I guess, because I was trying to think, all right, so you know how like a lot of entrepreneurs, what they do, and then when they become successful, stems from, you know, something that they were kind of like not good at, but like something that kind of like spoke volumes with them, right? Like I won't speak on certain things that I don't know nothing about. You know what I mean? But like you were talking about how like, all right, there's certain entrepreneurs who just decide I want to do something different completely, and they don't have nothing to do with that. So do you pick the thing that like you already have experience in some extent and you can speak on it and you can grow in it, or do you pick something that you want to do but you just don't have, you know, no experience on it?
I think we would say ideally that you would do what you love doing, because that's something that you can easily do consistently, right? And the challenge of consistency, I feel like, would be a lot less in that. The only problem with that, I feel, is that sometimes in that can lead to a level of a hesitation, right? It's where we say the biggest thing sometimes is just literally to start, like, and that's the hesitation.
That's the
right?
hardest step.
So sometimes it's like, okay, I can do what I love, but how do I monetize what I love? You might not know how to monetize what you love, right? And it's just like, maybe it's not important to just even have a specific thing that you want to do, and it's just the most important thing is to just build, right? So now let's say we're talking a social media game, and we're talking about, even at the beginning when we were talking about posting for 30 days straight just to try and grow, right? Where it was like, yeah, we all had our individual niches, and I still do, but even then I'm still struggling with like, okay, just for the habit of just doing it, posting consistently, just for the habit, just to start, because guess what? If you're sitting there trying to figure out a niche, let's say because some people don't even know what they love doing, right? Or you might love something, but you don't really love it too much. So you're stuck in this whole, okay, what do I do? And you do that for so long that you holding yourself back, right? And that's where the love what you do comes in sometimes, where it's like, instead of trying to figure out what I love, let's just do something just to get started at the very least. And I mean, you got to recognize a good deal in front of you, right? If you can do something that you might not love doing and the price is right, that might be a good idea for you to take. I mean, not long term, but you know, just to take, you know, up front, that you can maybe now invest in something that you do love doing for the long run, right? And I think that's where that can kind of come in.
No, definitely I agree though. Yeah, you should definitely just get started. Like that's the hardest step. But once you get started, the momentum kind of carries you. It's kind of like running track. You know, when they talk about running the 400, you start sprinting, then you let the momentum carry you around a little bit. Then, you know, I have bad luck with the 400 too. But nah, for real though. So yeah, that's what they always talk about. You always want to start just doing something and finding a niche kind of starts with who you're talking to. Because a lot of times we just talk about this podcast. They just be talking to talk. Like, they don't know what they're talking about.
Not even just podcast, business in general, right? Or anybody that comes on here on social media or anywhere just speaks.
They just be speaking. They don't know what they're talking to. You know what I mean? So I know, like, with me personally, like, we was talking about this, I only speak on things I know about. So I speak to, you know, the man in the relationship. I would say married man, but most people are not married at my age. But still, even the married man, though, black, who literally wants to be an entrepreneur. Because I feel like there's a disconnect in our community, right? Like, we feel like we either got to play some type of sports or we got to rap to become a millionaire. You know what I mean? But there's like a disconnect with actual entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, just entrepreneurship. There's other ways to get to a million without being necessarily an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Like we just don't know those different things. Like I like these little trends with black people in tech and you know this, that, and the third. Like, and then I just want to bring entrepreneur copywriting, because like even before I never even heard of, no one heard of copywriting. Yeah, literally. Until I opened up a book. You know, I looked on YouTube. I'm like, oh, what the heck is this? And it's just like, we like people who grown up like in hood environments. They're like, yo, like I've never even thought of this. Like I think I gotta either, because every entrepreneur I know from, you know, where I'm from, they selling t-shirts. So it's like, yo, we gotta do something different. I'm not gonna lie, everybody can't sell t-shirts, but I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with you doing it, but it's just like we gotta do something different. So it's like I just want to open up another, you know, avenue. So it's like you really should just do I feel like you should just do what you love. Just start talking, and eventually what you want to do is it'll just come to you
Mm-hmm.
because you just start speaking on stuff and people want to hear it. Yeah, I mean, you guys want to watch this, people want to watch that.
I mean, even if you're not speaking, just I think the biggest thing and the reason why that quote might exist is like to say start for one start, right, and then be consistent. Like that's I think that's the main thing to get across from that quote, right? Start and then be consistent. And if you don't know what you love doing, just start, right? And at some point, in you being consistent and learning how to constantly create or do whatever it is that you're doing, it'll come to you. And I think that's really what's the important part from that quote.
Yeah, and then plus right now with social media too, like you can make money for anything. Like especially like we're content creators and stuff. Like there's a girl who goes to basketball gyms and just cooks men. I don't know if you've seen her before.
Nah, it's a bunch of them. Now, remember I told you, bro, it's a dude, bro. He dresses up in a fox costume, bro, and he has like I don't know if he has a million, but he has like thousands of followers, bro. And I'm like, yo,
literally,
you can get to a bag doing anything.
Anything, yo, I'm telling you,
the dude with the most followers on TikTok,
he don't even speak,
but he don't even speak, and he's funny. And I'm like, yo, you be so like something like, damn, I'm mad. I ain't think of that.
Yeah, like and it just be anything. I'm telling you, bro. Like what was it? I was seeing it was a lot of crazy ones I can think of right now. But the point of the matter is, you really can anything you really can get paid for nowadays. You just gotta kind of just put it out there, really, and then be consistent. These guys are consistent. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We probably look down he has the most followers, but we probably look down. He got so many posts, probably. You know what I mean? Being consistent every single day or week, whatever you think is.
Sometimes you mean.
Yeah. So that's really I guess that covers pretty much all the topics and stuff.
We could talk about number 3 for a second.
Okay, do numbers lie? What do you think? Do numbers lie?
I think that numbers are used out of context sometimes, or like the way people frame numbers can lie. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
There's errors sometimes in the way the numbers are collected, or just like I said, sometimes how they're used could be incorrect. They're used out of context, or they're just used wrong. Maybe the raw number itself might not be wrong, but like the way you use them could be wrong.
Yeah. No, I think we talked about this before because I was talking about how 73% of statistics are wrong. So numbers do well, but then it's like it depends on situation too, though. I feel like it depends on situation. A lot of times, numbers are just a reflection of the behaviors that are happening now. That's just my extent, because I know, I work in a job that, commission its numbers, right? And like we'll look and we'll see like, oh, this person has this percent close rate, but then this number is low. It's called like signature or something. So signature, if that number is low, that means you're not asking the right questions. But if your close rate is high, that means people are just coming in asking for, new lines. You're just getting them because you're just clerking. But if that is high and that's high, that means you're asking the right questions and you're doing something with those questions. So it's like, and then when I go there and I'll see that and I'll be like, oh, I see the behavior. I see what the problem is. You really aren't doing this. So numbers are just a reflection of, it's just a mirror of what we're, what behaviors we're putting out there. So I don't think numbers lie at all, actually. But
you change your mind.
In that
you
extent,
didn't change your mind. Just
in that extent, statistics, you can't really trust them all the time. But if you're looking at that's statistics too. But it's situational. That's all I'm saying.
So with that, right, we have to sometimes, like I said, what we talked about earlier, right. So it's different, right. So now let's say we go to a basketball game, right, or a football game, whatever. We can all see and calculate easily and pretty easily verifiable how many points somebody score, right? That's easy to do. But now when we start to have these big, large, nationwide studies, right? And you have to start to ask the right questions about, okay, how is this data collected, right? Because now you start to get into the argument. Let's even say the data was collected and they did collect some type of valid data, right? But now people start to get into a confusion about correlation and causation, to where you might say, okay, so many X amount of people in this place do this, and people just automatically jump, okay, so that means all the people here do this. But it's just a correlation. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a cause behind it. So that's why I go to say that sometimes numbers can be used out of context or wrong incorrectly versus them necessarily being wrong. But sometimes they are collected wrong.
Yeah, no. It's like I said, so we agree, kind of. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it does. It's just situational, but it really is due to behaviors.
But I think they're important though, because if we don't have them, then we have no way of kind of having like a standard, right? So then sometimes like because in the conversation where we use that, it's like you threw it in there and it's like almost like, okay, well, you're saying that, and it's almost kind of invalidating the argument that's being made. And I guess if you don't believe the number, then the argument wouldn't really hold weight to you. But if we don't have any way of measuring anything, it's kind of like, well, how do we base argument?
Yeah, we got to have quality and quantity data. So we do got to have some type of quantifiable data. So it kind of, it's weird how it works. So it can support stuff. It can help support different arguments, but also too at the same time, that's what says situational. It's just situational whether or not numbers lie or not. Like, it really is situational. Like your point with like basketball, right? we were talking about this with like Russell Westbrook, right? You see him get points, assists, triple doubles, average triple double, but then you go to the game, you see him shooting, hit the top of the backboard. You're like, okay, he's taking a lot of shots, but then that's what also you got field goal percentage as well to measure that.
But even then, it's still like he still did score 20. He still did get a triple double. So the number didn't lie in that case, right? But in his case, you know, I mean, I don't think I've heard anybody complain about playing with him. He seemed like a good teammate. But like, you know, in a case, not use him for an example, but like anybody where somebody might average 20, but you go look at like, well, in this case, right? Like, 'cause we're hoopers or we're just athletes, right? So we understand. The way somebody might get 20 and the way somebody else might get 20 is two completely different things.
No facts.
One might be more efficient. One might be, you know, people like playing with this other person better, but they both did score 20, right? So it can kind of, it's the true number, right? But it can kind of like, you have to look at it to see, okay, what player would I rather play with? Do I want to play with the player who scores 20 in this way and is inefficient or whatever? And I want to play with this player who scores 20, but he plays team basketball. So
that's it. Numbers can use to support an argument. That's it. Now, I don't feel like they could be the end all be all though, because then you got to look at behaviors. Because we was talking about that with Luka Doncic. We were like, yo, he scores a lot of points. He does this, but then when he's not there, his teammates play better.
Yeah, I mean, you said the same thing with Ja Morant.
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, I feel that they still play great with Ja Morant, right? But then if you just look at the number, it's like, oh, well, they're like, I forgot the number, but they won like mad games without him still. And I'm like, well, this is just a good team. But
yeah,
I mean, some might argue that they played better, they might play more free without him, but it's like, it's just Ja.
Yeah, so it's like
nice,
it just supports. All it does is just support. Like that's all numbers can do. They could just support it. They don't make it no concrete evidence or anything like that. I didn't know if you wanted to cover anything else or.
I don't know, man. I don't know how long we've been speaking for, so I mean, I guess if we did enough, we can mock.
All right, man. So, you know, this is our first little talk with Kharee here. Kharee Mac on Instagram. You know, Loso 2.0, the copy guy. What you want to do, a little exit or something?
I don't actually, man. I don't practice it, so I don't want.
All right, man. Listen, I want y'all to keep killing the day, man. Y'all pray for stuff like this, all right? 2.0 out.